Hello, my name's James Wade. I'm tax attorney and owner of Beacon Tax Advocates. And if you're watching this, it's because you've set up an appointment with me to discuss your IRS or state tax case. Now, the purpose of this video is to lay out the process for this consultation. We are not going to get into any deep details as far as what do you do with dealing with the IRS, what are my options, what should I do, what shouldn't I do, what do I need to keep in mind, etc. I do have a link in this email to a separate video where I go over some of the basics, but really can't get into that during our 15 to 30-minute conversation. There's just not enough time. What we will do instead is we're going to get as much background as we can on how you came to the spot to see if there's anything in there that might be helpful or things we need to watch out for. So for example, how'd you find yourself owing this money? Or, how did this audit begin? And then say, okay, have you tried to deal with it yourself? Okay, what did you do? Oh, you hired somebody. Well, what did they do? Or what do you think they did? Do you have any unfiled returns? Was there something that happened during this where a death in the family, disability, natural disaster, sort of some background as to what may have contributed to this IRS or state tax problem. That's going to take a little while. But once we're done that, I'll feel like, okay, I think I've got enough information to give me an idea how you found yourself here and what's the extent of the problem. If I have any questions at that point, we can always do a follow-up call once we have you go and find out the answers to those questions. But generally speaking, once we're done that, we move on to the second phase, which is, okay, now I have an idea where things are. What are the best ways to get this resolved? Now, understand, in a phone call of this length, we're never going to get enough information to know for sure. But in the letter that's attached to this email, I have sort of a list of assets worksheet as well as your monthly income and expense worksheet to fill out as best you can. The idea is to give me sort of a financial statement of sorts where you are right now as far as your finances, because it's going to play a huge role in what is the best way to resolve this with the IRS or the state. Unfortunately, a lot of those TV and radio ads make it sound like, well, you have a problem, we'll just call up and negotiate a resolution and just, lickety split, be done with it. Unfortunately, a lot of this is very mathematical. We have to figure out, hey, what do you make for income? What do you spend for expenses? What do you have for assets? Okay, now that we know that, here's some of your options for getting this resolved. So that's kind of a breakdown of the two phases of this consultation. Once we're done with that, I'm going to say, okay, I think I can help you, or I can't help you. If I can't help you, I'm going to try to make a referral. But if I can help you, I'm going to say one of two things. All right, your situation is really extreme. We got to act now. At which point I'll say, okay, I think it's going to be this much all in to negotiate with the state or the federal government and get it resolved. Typically, there's going to be an initial deposit and then monthly payments. Just understand that because we really don't know what needs to be done, because all I got is some basic phone information from you, we're going to actually have to look at documents, talk with you, talk with the IRS, figure out what needs to happen. We'll have to sort of spitball an idea of, okay, this is what it's going to take to resolve it. Not an ideal situation for you or for us, but it happens on occasion. Sometimes things have just gone too far. For most of you, however, what's going to happen is I'm going to say, well, look, we've got a little bit of time. Why don't we do what they call an investigation? In other words, it isn't formal representation before the IRS or state, but what I do is I say, okay, it's going to be this much flat fee to go and look at your case, both in terms of what's the information that the IRS has, and then what do we have for more in-depth research as to your finances, so that I can sort of come much closer to what is the best way to resolve your case. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks, at the end of which you're going to have a report that's going to say, all right, we looked at the IRS account, here's what we're seeing. If there's any opportunities or things we need to watch out for, those will be highlighted for you. And then we'll have a financial analysis of sorts where I say, okay, based on this, here's your best option, A, B, C. And then a quote as far as fees for each one of those. What I like about the investigation is I can reduce the overall fee because I've reduced a lot of the uncertainty as to what needs to get done. Because if I have to jump in immediately, there's often a lot of questions, that have to be sorted out, and it could take time and additional effort. Whereas if we do this investigation, we can get more closer to, okay, I think this is really the way it's going to end up being. There's a lot of uncertainty has been removed. And if you decide to hire us to do the representation piece, you get a credit for the amount that you paid for the investigation. Because in either case, whether I take full rep or do the investigation, I still have to go pull your IRS records. I still have to ask you questions about your finances to essentially create a workup as to what your options are in either case, so I give you credit for it. But what's nice is you go, okay, I know what I'm getting into. This is what the fees are. And in some cases, you may decide to choose what you have us do and what you don't have us do, what you may handle yourself. So, again, my name's James Wade. I look forward to talking to you. If you have any questions, you can contact me at info@beacontaxadvocates.com. Please be available on time at the time you chose. Please don't be coming back from a trip to the grocery store or in a meeting you had to duck out of. Try to set aside some time for this. And I think when you're done, you'll feel a lot better. You'll know what's kind of going on and what your potential options are, so you feel better. You don't have to live in fear anymore every time you go out to that, the mailbox for fear of what you're going to get from the IRS. So with that, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.